I saw these two comedy specials on Netflix, Ricky Gervais and Dave Chappelle. These are both people that I like very much. I find them both charming. I find them very talented, and sometimes I find them hilarious. But these are really bad specials, both of them. And they're both the exact same show. They're both the exact same show. They're not funny. They're self-aggrandizing. And they both, like I said, they both did exactly the same thing. But basically, the last time they were out, they did a lot of trans jokes, and that got them under fire, and that elevated them to cultural icons. And then they said, well, we want to come back and do something else that makes us seem relevant. And so they did a bunch of what we used to call sick jokes about cripples and sick kids. And when I was a kid, seriously, when I was like 10, 13-year-olds, I had a book of sick jokes like that. And it would be like, can Tommy come out to play baseball? Well, you know that Tommy is a quadriplegic. And the answer is yes, we wanted to use him as second base. You know, those were sick jokes, and we'd giggle, and it was funny. But these jokes, you know, and I'm not offended by them. The sick humor is fine, but I just didn't find them funny. The high moment of Chappelle's show was when he told the story about performing at the Hollywood Bowl, and a guy attacked him wielding a knife. And all of these backstage celebrities jumped on the attacker and beat him up on stage. So this is what he said, cut 7.
We was whooping his ass. Not we, I mean, I was on stage trying to think of a joke to tell, but they was beating his up right behind me. Everybody could see it. Everybody could see it. And I'm sitting up there trying to think of what to say. And I'm tongue-tied. Me, of all people, can't think of anything to say. Look at my karma. Just that moment. Of all the people in the world, Chris Rock walks from backstage. Walks up to me in front of 20,000 people, grabs the mic out of my hands and looks at the crowd and goes, "Was that Will Smith?"
So the funniest joke in Dave Chappelle's show was Chris Rock. But the thing is, and then they go on, and Chappelle talks about fulfilling his dreams of becoming a famous comedian, which he obviously has done and surpassed. Ricky Gervais talks about his love of animals and his raising funds for animals and all this stuff. And I just thought, who cares? This is the self-importance that the show is about you instead of making me laugh. So the left comes in and attacks them, and the attacks were valid in the sense that the show wasn't funny, but they kind of said they're not funny like they used to be, but they didn't like them before either. And they kept saying, well, they're trying to stay relevant. That's right. But the reason it's hard for them to stay relevant is because they've won, because the left is a laughingstock, because political correctness and wokeness and all this shut up, don't say, I use my right pronouns, is all ridiculous, and people are laughing at it. And the only thing protecting it is the FBI raiding parents, investigating parents as terrorists. You're not going to win that way, not in America, not in the West. Ultimately, this is going to collapse, and it's collapsed. And even so, even though these specials weren't particularly funny, we know Chappelle is funny, we know Gervais is funny. They'll come back and they'll be funny again. And they're both so much cooler than their critics. This is the key thing. This is the prestige thing. They're both, look, Jeremy Boring, who made Lady Ballers, is now, because he made that, cooler than his critics. Look at the guy. His name is literally Boring. The guy is, I'm sorry, he's the God King, but he's a dweeb, right? And he's literally now cooler than anybody on the left. I'm 172 years old, and I'm cooler than anybody on the left because they become scolds and humorless, and the stuff they say is all garbage. And that doesn't make any of us, Chappelle, Gervais, Jeremy, me, it doesn't make any of us Winston Churchill. It's just that cool folks laugh at stupid stuff and they're not afraid. That's what you do. And that makes, I'm telling you that the guy my age is cooler than the guy writing the culture at the column at the New York Times. That is bad news for them. And it's just true. And they're really getting desperate now. They're just, Kathleen Kennedy hasn't destroyed enough famous franchises. So she's now given the new Star Wars film to a Canadian feminist documentarian. That's 3 strikes. She's Canadian, she's feminist, she's a documentarian. Bang, you're out of there. But no, she's going to direct the new Star Wars film. And this is her talking about her point of view. Cut 8.
It is important to be able to look into the eyes of a man and say, I am here, and recognize that. And recognize that I am working to bring something that makes you uncomfortable, and it should make you uncomfortable because you need to change your attitude. And it's only when you're uncomfortable, when you're shifty, when you have to have difficult conversations that you will perhaps look at yourself in the mirror and not like the reflection. And then say, maybe there is something wrong with the way I think, or maybe there is something wrong with the way I am addressing this issue.
Now, to be fair to her, she's Pakistani, so the men that she deals with may be committing honor killings, and I'm not, saying that she shouldn't have her point of view, but that's an attitude that's going to make a crap Star Wars film. The thing is, this is what they do. We talk about it on the right all the time. You want to make a Christian movie, fine, but don't preach to me. You want to make a conservative movie, fine, but tell a great story that has conservative implications. Don't preach to me. All the left can do now is preach. Over the holiday, I was playing a board game with my grandson. It was a Universal's Monsters. I was a big Universal Monster fan as a kid. So I sent away for this Universal Monsters board game, and we're playing the game, and there are 6 characters that you can play, and 4 of them are women. And I thought, how many girls are playing this game? None, maybe none, maybe one, maybe, not that many girls playing the Universal Monsters games, but now he has to choose a female character because there aren't enough male characters going on. At what point did it occur to these people that their job is to instruct us in morality instead of making a fantastic Star Wars movie or making a fun game for little boys to play monsters with? When did that occur to them? It occurred to them when all their ideas failed and they had nothing to say that was real about humanity. So basically, we know that their movies are over, their comedy is over, their board games are over. And, you can see that people are no longer trying to live up to their ideals. There's this new trend called stay-at-home girlfriends, okay? That stay-at-home girlfriends, I love the fact that they scold us when we don't show up for their movies. We don't go to Ghostbusters. You're not feminist. Like, screw you. I'm giving you my money. You're supposed to entertain me. I'm not supposed to sit here and listen to you. But anyway, there's this new trend, stay-at-home girlfriends. It's not stay-at-home moms. They don't have to take care of kids. They serve their boyfriends. They make dinner, they do the laundry and all this stuff. But most of their life is spent looking good and doing their content. And really, and they're stay-at-home wives who are doing content too. And this is really a return to factory settings for women, where women take care of the home, create the home, which is the most important place in the world for everybody. Your home is the most important place. Create new life, which is the most important job. Guide new life into becoming human, most important job. But they can also have a financial stake in the world by doing home industries. It used to be making clothes. It used to be making pottery, making furniture. Now it's doing content and doing other things that you can do on a computer, selling your cookies, selling the things that you make on computer. These are the things that these stay-at-home people are doing. And the journalists, the female journalists, can't write about this and just say, this is what it is, this is who likes it, this is how it's going, here's maybe a critic's voice. They can't get 3 paragraphs in before they keep saying, well, financial dependence on your boyfriend or your husband. Hey, believe me, I don't think you should be financially dependent on your boyfriend. Your husband is an entirely different thing, and you're going to be financially dependent on somebody, so it might as well be somebody who loves you, but they can't do it. They just don't have the goods to accept that people are going back to what is human, what is good in life. But just because they've lost doesn't mean that we have won. And I have to say, I was watching this thing over the holidays, just embarrassing. There was this beer company. It's called Ultra Right. It put out a calendar with pretty conservative girls on it. And unfortunately, they called it Conservative Dads, Real Women of America. Now, that's a bad thing because dads should be hypocrites around their children. They should not be looking at, pictures of pretty girls. They should not be hanging up calendars with pinup girls on them because they're dads. So they have to be hypocrites. They should save that for the locker room when they're talking to the other guys. But they want to show their daughters and their sons a little bit of an elevated person. So they lie a little bit. They pretend to be something a little better than they are. But suddenly these conservatives, and I have to include my lovable friend, Jenna Ellis, and this is not a personal attack, this is just a disagreement. She's calling this softcore porn. These are very non-pornographic pictures of pretty conservative girls who we identify with. Riley Gaines is wearing a bikini because she's a swimmer. Dana Lash, who is lovely no matter what she's wearing. Josie, the redheaded libertarian, has a very cute shot of her baking a pie in the kitchen. And they're pretty girls looking good, but they're doing feminine kind of conservative stuff. Men like to look at pretty girls. The GIs who beat the Nazis had pictures in their wallets and on their planes of Betty Grable, who was famous for her shapely legs and her nice backside, because it comforted them and it inspired them and it reminded them of why they fight. And The same thing with Lady Ballers. It comes out and it's a sex comedy. There's some sex jokes in it, and people are saying, oh, why did you degrade yourself? This is part of life. So here's my final word about the conservative culture that now has a chance to build itself, both in politics and in the arts. In order to build a new political and artistic culture, you have to ask yourself one question. What is a human being? You know, Matt talks about what is a woman. Yes, what is a woman, but also what is a man? What is a person? The final failure of the left is not just their welfare programs, not just the fact that sexual freedom has been a disaster, not just the fact that drugs have been addictive and destructive. It's materialism. It's the idea that man is stuff, that stuff can make him happy, that pills can solve his depression, that birth control changes the moral dynamic of sexuality. For my right-wing friends, my right-wing friends who want everyone to suddenly act instead like they're Oliver Cromwell, right, like a Puritan preacher, ask yourself, is there no goodness in God's gift of sex? Is it all, like it's supposed to be neat and fine? This is a Dionysian force that sweeps through every human body, especially in their youth and especially in men. It is not supposed to be tame. It's not supposed to be nice. It is something very difficult to control, and people control it in various ways. And one of them is by looking at pictures of pretty girls that hopefully are not too grotesque. For my Catholic friends who are talking about getting rid of liberalism as the foundation of government, let me ask you this. Is there nothing good about God's gift of freedom of thought? That we're not, the Catholics are saying, well, you have freedom as long as you're doing what's good for the common good. For my friends on the right who think that one size should fit everybody, one kind of life should fit everybody, is there no goodness in God's gift of individuality? The project of the human person, and I want to say this at the beginning of the year because I'm going to be hitting on it all year, is not to be himself. The left is totally wrong about this. You're not supposed to be yourself. You're supposed to be the self that God made you to be, the image of God as you individually represent it. It's never evil. That's why we have the 10 Commandments to tell us what not to do. It's never greedy. It's never covetous. It's never murderous, but it can be eccentric. It can be sexy. It can be funny, silly, sometimes out of line, a little foul-mouthed. Sometimes it can be a lot of different things. That image of God can appear in a lot of different ways. And if we want to take back the culture, and if you want to reform the state, this is our moment. It really is. This is our moment. 2024 is the moment. But we won't win if we don't try to understand who we are and why we were created and what we were created to be. And we can't understand that until we start thinking seriously again about the mind of our Creator, who He is, what He wants, and how we can know for sure. Man, that was great. I love that guy. Like and subscribe, and also subscribe to The Andrew Klavan Show for even more Klavan-y goodness.